What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Dark Previews, and today I'm going to take you through an in-depth player prop preview for the WNBA on this upcoming two-game slate.
Yeah, game day, showing up at practice, attackers, lace them up, get active, lights, camera, then action.
If it's your first time checking out the channel, I do encourage you to subscribe because I'm dropping heat just like this each and every day. Just yesterday, we previewed a four-game slate, bagged a couple of winners. We went 4-3 on our straight bets, starting with Alyssa Thomas. We cashed her under 7.5 assists. We then hit Ariel Atkins under 22.5 PRA with the Connecticut Sun money line for -105. We also hit Dewana Bonner over 6.5 rebounds. And then we finished the day off with Jewel Lloyd over her PRA, and we multiplied that with the Storm money line. So a 4-3 day, profitable day if you went the straight bets. Today, we've only got a two-game slate. So I'm going to take my time with this one. We'll go through a lot of players in depth. We'll talk about form lines, their matchups, all the things I like, the things I don't. And then by the end of it, we should have a nice, juicy set of bets. If that sounds interesting, let's go. So to kick it off, we'll look at the Atlanta Dream versus the Connecticut Sun. The Atlanta Dream sucking ass right now. 3 consecutive losses. One of the worst teams in this league, up against the Connecticut Sun, who finally won a game after losing a couple in a row. The line in this is for 8.5 points. Connecticut Sun are the favorites. They're also back at home. They're 8-1 at home. Their only loss was up against the Aces. So this is a tough matchup. The Dream, their offense is terrible. In the Connecticut Sun, their defense is amazing. The last time these teams matched up, the Connecticut Sun won 69-50, holding Atlanta to the lowest total they've had so far this season. So if you're looking at sides and totals, the 8.5 for the Connecticut Sun, it does make sense, but they're not playing that well right now. So I'll probably stay away from the sides and totals for this game. Depending on what the total is, I might look at the under, but I know you're here for player props, so let's get into it. When we talk about points, I do have a strategy that I do like to stick with and run with when it comes to betting points. If you're interested in checking out that strategy, I've got a video link below. It's a PDF. You just have to download it. It's completely free. It tells you what resources to use, what to look at, and when you should take the bet, and some other things you need to take into consideration. It's been making me a hell of a lot of cash so far in the W, so feel free to check that out. All right, we'll look at the Atlanta Dream players first. On the road, they are still missing Ryan Howard, who was a big piece for them. So they're somewhat depleted, but we'll go through some of their key players. We'll talk about what the matchup looks like, and we'll see if we can find some value here. But chances are, I'm going to take someone's under for the Atlanta Dream. It's what I normally do when the Connecticut Sun are playing. So just before looking at the numbers, someone I'd probably take the under on is someone like Alicia Gray. But let's talk about it. Her points line in this game is at 14.5 points. So looking in her last 10 games, she's covered this. She's gone to the under in 6 out of her last 10 games, averaging 14.3. We know that the Connecticut Sun, they do allow the fewest points in the league. So this is a tough matchup for her. If we think about Alicia Gray and her style, I would say she does score a lot of her points from spot-up shooting. Now, the Connecticut Sun just happen to be the best team at limiting spot-up shooting. She gets to the free throw line. The Sun don't give up too many free throws. She can score in transition. The Sun don't allow many points in transition. So this is a very difficult matchup for her, is what I'm going to say. So the recent form, it is a little bit patchy. But if you look at the head-to-head form, we see she's actually gone over this in 4 out of her last 5. But she's only played them once this season. And in that game, she scored 9 points. That was a 19-point loss. She had 29 minutes. She still took 11 attempts, but she only made 27% of her shots. Looking at her form this year, she's taking about 12.4 shots on average and getting about 32 minutes of action. We know that Ryan Howard is out, so if we take a look at her numbers without Ryan, she's played 2 games without her, 19 points against the Fever, and then only 8 points against the Liberty. The Liberty, another strong team in this competition, whereas the Fever, they're leaking points like crazy. So without Ryan Howard, she's taking 14 shots per game and getting about 30 minutes. So a very minor uplift for Alicia Gray. So I'd most likely be taking the unders for her. I don't want to bet on the first person that I look at, but that's where my head and my heart goes. So that's my first lean, and that's purely because the matchup is awful, and this strategy has been working quite well for me. If you look at her three-point line, it's at 1.5. She's cashed this in 8 of 15 games. Up against the Connecticut Sun, she hasn't cashed this at all. So 0 out of 5 games. So the under, I think it really talks to the fact that we're like fading Alicia Gray, but at -168, I'm not feeling that. When I look at a value play, Alicia Gray unders could form part of the equation. She has rebounded well against the Connecticut Sun, though. So let's take a look. 4.5 boards for Alicia Gray. 4 out of her last 10. 4.4 as an average. Tough matchup in terms of rebounds allowed. And looking at the numbers, she gave the Connecticut Sun the business when it came to points and rebounds last season. When they last matched up, she only had 4. So I'm not really feeling that. So we shall pass on that one. I think what will probably work best is what I did yesterday. Let's just try to find the best plays in each game instead of going through every single player. I hope you can get down with that because it gave us a profitable day yesterday. Let's hope we can bang another profitable day. But let's try to keep it all in the appropriate rhythm. And we'll go through the Dream first. We'll just go through all of their players and then we'll flip it over and look at the Connecticut Sun. So one thing I like to do is look at the recent form. That's pretty important for me. And if you're looking at the Dream, Tina Charles is probably the main player who's consistently been performing as of late. And if you also look, there are only lines available for Tina Charles and Alicia Gray. So Tina Charles, let's take a look at you. So Outliers drawing up the players with the highest hit rate. So Tina Charles has cashed her points plus rebound line in 4 consecutive games now, 4 out of her last 5. This season, she's cashed in 8 out of her last 15. But last 4 games is where she's really turned up. She'll be going hard. The problem is she's got a difficult matchup against this Connecticut Sun team who give up the fewest points and the fewest rebounds. So, but at the same time, somebody's got to score some points, right? But at the same time, I've said that before, and believe it or not, no one scored points when I said that. But if we think of the way Tina Charles, how does she like to play? She likes to score in the post. Connecticut Sun, pretty good at defending that. She gets offensive rebounds and puts that shit back. Connecticut Sun, top 4 in terms of that as well. Scoring and trenches. So this all points to a difficult matchup as well for this whole Atlanta Dream team. But if we look at head-to-head form, let's take a look at this. She played the Connecticut Sun once this season, and she scored 12 points and had 12 boards. So despite the difficult matchup, she actually covered this points plus rebounds line. But given the strong rebounding effort and the fact that there's going to be a lot of rebound chances in this game, maybe just a rebound look at for Tina Charles. But she's only hitting in 7 out of 15. So the matchup's not the best for rebounds. She did have a good game against them, rebounding the ball. But I'm not really feeling that. I think that under for Alicia Gray is probably the better look. So that's what I'm going to be taking. So let's jump over to the Connecticut Sun. Now, they are in a back-to-back. I believe their game did go into overtime. My girl, Dejanay Carrington, was going off in that one, but we do have more props available for this Connecticut Sun team. So let's check to see what's been hitting consistently and whether we go back and keep playing it. So the first one that pops up is Alyssa Thomas, and it's under 7.5 assists. I did take that straight up in the last game against the Washington Mystics. She only finished with 6. Now, she's gone under this in 4 out of her last 5 games. Looking at her last 10, she's gone under in 8 of her last 10. Now, the Atlanta Dream, they do now the 5th most assists in the league, though. So the matchup somewhat difficult in order to cash the under, meaning there's a chance she goes over. But in saying that, she's been getting hooked around 7 quite often. So if I had to take a bet, it would be to the under. It is at minus 136, so I wouldn't bet this if you're sports betting. But if you're someone who's playing fantasy, prize picks, underdog, chalkboard, dabble, anything like that, rebet, then and they're going to give you good odds for it, the under is definitely a good look. So I don't mind the under, but I don't love it. Given, check this out, she had 11 assists the last time they played, and that was a low-scoring game of 69 points. And one thing I'll say, I watched the end of that Connecticut Sun game today, and Alyssa Thomas, if they track potential assists in the W, she'd have a ton of them because she passes that thing around like crazy. Unfortunately, her teammates just don't make shots a lot of the time. So betting the under is a sweaty bet there for Alyssa Thomas, but with the right matchup, I think you can cash that. The matchup in this one is probably not suited to the under. So I'll pass on that. But another play which has been hitting quite well for Alyssa Thomas is taking her under in points and assists. So we can see she's gone under that in 4 out of her last 5, averaging 16.6. The line in this game is 19.5 points and assists. So even if she does hit the 8 assists, can she score the 12 points? Well, looking at her last 10 games, she's gone under this in 8 of her last 10. The Atlanta Dream, they do play quite slow, and no one plays slower than the Connecticut Sun. So a lot of this kind of leans to the under for Alyssa Thomas points. So if we just look at her points, perhaps, the line's at 11.5, I see. So 11.5 is a pretty yucky number. At 12.5, it might be something that I can get around. 11.5, I don't know. 12 seemed pretty square. Her numbers, there's no real difference whether it was 11.5 or 12.5. The hit rate would be exactly the same. But I think looking at points and assists, so a strong look to the under. 12 out of 20 games this season, she's gone to the under when it's points and assists. This game is bound to be low scoring, I would assume. Connecticut Sun off the back of a back-to-back up against Atlanta Dream team that is struggling. So both of these teams are sitting in the bottom 4 in terms of points per game. Yeah, I think the under for Alyssa Thomas, it's not a bad look. I'm going to put that on my list of leans. I don't love it to death at minus 120, but I don't think it's such a bad look. All right, let's check to see what other hit rates we can get around. Bonner, you can look at fading her PRA. Now, I'll be quick around Bonner. 25.5 is the line. Now, she had been playing pretty poorly over her last couple of games, last 5 especially. You can see it here, especially scoring-wise. But in that last game against Washington, she finally got her groove back. 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists. So there could be this could be Dawana Bonner returning back to form because she's more than capable of covering 25.5. The last game, she showed us that she's probably back in action. She's looking good again, and she does have a good matchup for rebounds and assists. The points could be a little bit tricky, but her rebounds and assists, the matchup's not too bad for that. So hit rate recently to the under is good, but I'm not going to be taking it for that very reason. Now, this one is something I could get around. It's Dejanay Carrington. Points line of 11.5. Now, she just scored 22 points against the Mystics. She's covered in 4 out of her last 5, averaging 13.8 points. In head-to-head matches, she did score 15 points when they matched up earlier this season. These numbers here that you can see, the first 4 games, these were the season prior. So the last matchup with the Dream, she did score 15 points, 32 minutes, only 10 shots. 1 from 2 from deep and a couple of free throws. So it was nothing extraordinary. So at 11.5, I can definitely see her covering this. She's covered in 11 out of 17. Now, the matchup, I wouldn't say is the best for her, though. The Dream allow the 5th fewest points in the league. But if we think about Dejanay Carrington and how she likes to score, well, she likes to run in transition. The problem is the Dream pretty good at limiting transition points. Get to the free throw line. The Dream, they don't foul too much. Spot-up shooting is where the Dream are probably the weak point, whether it be off screens and whatnot, and defending the pick and roll man. So the matchup, not necessarily great for Dejanay. Her hit rate is terrific, and I can see her going over. But if we think about the strategy, which I've left in the PDF, this doesn't necessarily meet all the criteria. But if you haven't already, check out that strategy. It's in the video link below. So Dejanay Carrington, I look for reasons to bet on her, and I want to bet on her today, and I probably will. But what I'm saying is the matchup for Dejanay is not fantastic, but given the poor matchup, she can probably still hit it anyway. And maybe I'm biased, but shit, I'm just a man, you say? But there's Dejanay, great hit rate as a late. Hit it against the Dream earlier this season. There's a chance she does it again. Now, someone else who's been balling, Tyesha Harris. Her points line's at 9.5 for this particular game. She's cashed this in 4 out of her last 5. She just scored 23 points against the Washington Mystics. Now, I just said it earlier again with Dejanay Carrington. The Atlanta Dream, they do give up points to some shooters, especially some spot-up shooters. Now, Tyesha Harris, very capable of being a spot-up shooter. She does run the pick and roll quite a bit, but at the same time, more than capable of catching and shooting. She's probably the best shooter on this Connecticut Sun starting lineup. If we look at the head-to-head form against this opponent, though, she did score 13 points in that blowout win earlier this season, 32 minutes. She only shot 4 for 13, and she was 3 from 9 from deep. So she didn't have the greatest shooting game, but still managed to cover anyway. And if you check this shit out right here, she's covered this line in 9 out of her last 10, which is pretty crazy. 32 minutes, 10 shot attempts, 38% from deep. So more than capable of covering this 9.5. The concern that I have, 9.5 is quite a low line for somebody who's been covering this quite well. Sometimes when this shit happens, I could be missing something, right? I'm just thinking out loud here. Do the Connecticut Sun play their bench a lot more given this is a back-to-back? She has seen more minutes over her last 3 games than she normally would. So I doubt it, to be honest. But she could get less playing time. But 9.5 points, she's covered this extremely well, especially over her last 10. I think it probably comes down to pace. If this game's going to be slower and lower scoring, it makes sense that these players' lines come down. So 9.5, look, it looks great. I'd be foolish not to bet this, right? Would I be foolish to bet this? Answer me that. But the numbers look great, but I think we have to keep in mind here that this is probably going to be this might finish on 130 points. Actually, I'm going to check the total projected line just so I can save myself here because I'm going mad. All right, the total points line is at 152.5, which is relatively low. But what I'm saying is it could be even lower than that. They could finish a lot lower. So Tyesha Harris, I've got her on my short list. I'm close to betting it, not going to lie to you. Hit rate on that is pretty good. And the matchup, it's not so bad for her either. Another look we could take is Alyssa Thomas under her boards. The problem that I can already see with this is, yes, she hasn't been rebounding that well as of late. She's only covered she's gone to the under in 4 of her last 5 and under in 6 of her last 10. The problem is up against the Atlanta Dream, who can't score very well. They miss a whole lot of shots. A lot of rebounds been bouncing Alyssa Thomas's way. So if you like betting on form against the opponent, this is good for you. The matchup is good. The Dream, they give up a lot of boards. Alyssa Thomas, capable of getting a lot of boards, and she's got a lot of boards against them. So even though her recent form probably tells you to take the under, there's some contradicting information. So I'd probably choose not to bet it, to be honest. So I'll probably pass on that and see which way she lands. We'll filter things by the last 10 to see if we get anything new popping up in terms of hit rate. There's nothing crazy going on here. And then we can look at the head-to-head stuff. Who's somebody who eats when they're up against this team? We've got Alyssa Thomas. She's covered her PRA in every single game against this team. But we spoke about that PRA and how, not her PRA, but we've spoken about how the under in her points and assists could be on. So the main reason this PRA has such a great hit rate is a lot of it is her rebound numbers and her point scoring numbers in the past. So the PRA for Alyssa Thomas against this team is excellent. But looking at her last 5 games, it's wildly inconsistent. So there's not enough information there for me to want to take. We then have Brionna Jones. Now, looking at Brionna Jones, she has been a little bit quiet as of late. When they last played, she scored 9 points. Last year, she dominated them a little bit, but we're a year older. Brionna Jones only cashed this in 2 out of her last 5 and 4 of her last 10, averaging 13 per game. In terms of the matchup, we know Brionna Jones like to bang down low. And this Atlanta Dream team, it's not so bad. Middle of the field when it comes to defending the post. They don't foul too much. They don't allow too many free throws. Brionna Jones does get into that pick and roll, but the Connecticut Sun don't run so much pick and roll. They tend to hit Brionna Jones in the high post or in the low post for her to go to work. So I wouldn't necessarily say this matchup is ideal for her. So I don't think there's too much value that I can see in this. We can have a look at Bonner, perhaps. I did bet her rebounds in her most recent game, and that cashed pretty easily. But actually, we did look at Bonner already, and she just had a great game. So the bounce back could be on. But I guess the way that she scores, the Dream are pretty good at slowing that down too. So there's probably a lot of unders on offer in this particular game. Which one you choose, I do not know. So I think Alicia Gray is probably my favorite under. And then I don't know, Alyssa Thomas, points plus assists, potentially that, Dejanay Carrington or Tyesha Harris. One of those I'll probably bet to the over. But let's jump into the next game to see if we can find some more value. We've got the Sparks versus the Mercury. And this will be a more entertaining game, I tell you that. I'm going to look at the live odds now. The Spark plus 11 underdogs. Total points line is at 166.5. Now, the Spark, they've lost 6 in a row. So they're not doing so well right now. Whereas the Mercury, they did just lose to the Minnesota Lynx on the weekend. They have had some time off. So these aging bodies have had time to heal. They've been okay since Brittany Griner's come back. Problem is, when they verse the top competition, they haven't been able to get over the line. But the line, it opened at 10.5. It's now at 11. So people are hammering the Mercury at the moment. Now, these teams played, I think, 26 days ago, the 2nd of June. The Phoenix Mercury, they covered with ease in that game. But keeping in mind, the spread was only at 4.5. They shot really well from downtown. They forced a whole lot of turnovers. And they were up by at least 24 points. The Mercury, they do lean on three-point shooting. And I think they got the second highest three-point percentage at 41%. The Spark, man, it's going to be tough for them. They don't have Lexi Brown, Cameron Brink. He's injured after, I think, it's ACL. So the Mercury definitely have the advantage, even when the Spark are at full health. I think looking at the numbers, the Spark only have one player averaging double digits this season, whereas the Mercury have at least 4 of them. So they've got so many weapons. Also, at home, I think the Mercury get to business and they put the work on them. But let's take a look to see what we can find in this game. We'll look at the Spark first. We'll see what lines are available, and then we'll try to find the best ones for you. So, looking at recent form, there's a few overs that are screaming out to me. We're going to try to jump into the Holy Trinity first. And what I'm looking at here is a hit rate in the last 5 to 10 games, hit rate against the opponent, and one that's standing out to me. There's 2 of them. So we'll start with Kahambi. Now, it's under in her PRA of 29.5. So she's cashed the under in 4 out of her last 5 games, but only 5 of her last 10. Her last game, she did manage to bounce back, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists against the Liberty. Now, the reason why I wouldn't take the under on Hamby, is even though the Mercury might slap him, there's probably still going to be a lot of stats to go around for the Spark. You can see it here, the Mercury sitting in the bottom 3 in points, rebounds, and assists allowed. So they're giving up stats. One thing that could lean you away if you like the under, she's played the Mercury 5 times. She's gone under in all 5. She's only played them once this season, though. And in that game, 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. So she did go under, but if she only got 4 rebounds in that game, you can probably consider yourself lucky because she is quite aggressive getting those rebounds. And you can see it in her rebound numbers so far this year. She's averaging 10.4 boards. That last game against the Mercury where she had 4 rebounds, that's the lowest total she's had all season. I doubt we see that again. Her line for rebounds is 10.5. So the under for Dearica Hamby, I'm not feeling it. She did go through a bad stretch, but you saw at the start of the season what this girl's capable of. Up against this Mercury team, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we see her go over. Could argue she'll probably have some sort of mismatch. If she's playing the 3 or the 4, there will be a mismatch in her advantage. As long as she stays away from Grana, she's good. But Dearica Hamby, even though the numbers recent form might say to take the under, I'd probably lean to the over if I had to take the bet, to be honest. If I head over to Props Madness and we just look at how Hamby likes to score her points, let's take a look right now. So Hamby, she does score about 80% of her points in the paint. Now, if we think about the Mercury, they're not too bad at defending the paint, especially the restricted area. They're pretty good in there, but they are terrible at defending that 3-point line and above the break. Hamby only scores a couple of her points in that position, but the good thing with Hamby is she can run. Now, the Mercury, they allow a lot of points in transition, and Hamby, that's where she does score quite a handful of her points, as well as some spot-up shooting. So the matchup honestly isn't too bad if you want to look at her points prop alone. It's at 16.5. She's finally had a bounce back. So she had this stretch here where she went under for 5 consecutive games. At 16.5, I know she's on the road up against the Mercury. I'd probably lean to the over on this. She did score 23 points against them last time, right? 9 from 12, so not a high volume, but 3 from 3 from deep, 2 from 4 from the line. And in that last game, we saw her get back to her free throws, which is nice. The volume, not super high though, but it was good to see her percentages back up again. So probably lean to the over. The matchup ain't too bad, but I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. You're saying, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I'm not feeling it. I'm not overly confident in that. But one with a whole lot of green lights on it is Ari McDonald, and it's under her 3-point line of 1.5. So she's hit the under in 4 out of her last 5 games, 7 out of her last 10. And this season, she's gone under in 13 out of 17 games. So 76% hit rate for Ari McDonald's under. She is seeing more minutes given the amount of injuries we have been seeing to this Spark team. So I think looking at her last 5 games probably gives you a more accurate prediction. She's getting about 28 minutes. She's attempting 3.8 attempts per game. So I do like the under if you're just looking at those numbers. But then if we think about the matchup and the play style, Ari McDonald scores 47% of her points above the break, right? This Mercury team is the worst team at defending above the break, and they also allow the most 3-pointers made this season. So what I'm saying is the matchup's not right here. So I wouldn't take the under, and I'm not saying to take the over, but the more reasons I can find not to take a bet, the better it's going to be for my bankroll. So I'm going to have to pass on Ari McDonald's under. The other look we could do is Ari McDonald's over in her points. Now, she's covered this in 4 out of 5. I actually bet on her in this last game against the Liberty where she only scored 2 points, believe it or not. And you could see she was going through this massive stretch where she was consistent as hell. Then up against the Liberty, she got shut down. She still played 25 minutes. She was 0 from 8. My lord. So she didn't make a bucket. She just got 2 free throws. Now, if this was the NBA, I would be hammering this, talking about the bounce back factor. But my question is, and I haven't got it answered yet, is do the women in the WNBA bounce back after a bad game? That's my only thought process. So let me know in the comment section if you made it this far. Do you have confidence in Aaron McDonald bouncing back after shooting 0 from 8? My lord. And I think she can. I'm not going to bet it just yet, but I'm going to put it down on my list of leans because I do think she can do it. She has to. There's just too much opportunity there, right? So checking to see if there's any other value plays here. Just looking at hit rates. We'll look at head-to-head form. So right now I'm looking to see these Spark players, how they performed in head-to-head matchups against the Mercury. So one thing that's showing up right now is Hamby's assist, under 3.5 assists. So she's gone under in 5 straight games against the Mercury. Only had 2 assists the last time they played them. The Mercury do give up a lot of dimes though. And if we look at the last 5 games, she has gone under in 3 out of her last 5. She's gone under in 5 out of her last 10. So I don't know, I'll probably lean to the over on that. So I'll probably pass on that. There's a lot more Ari McDonald stuff. We've already gone through Hamby. We've got Rickea Jackson. She's failed to score 9.5 points in 5 straight games. It's only 1 game. My bad. Her only game against the Phoenix Sun. Mercury, not the Suns. God damn it. And we look at her recent form. It's a little bit all over the place. So I think for the Spark, the Hamby thing, she could be bouncing back. So I don't want to fade her. Ari McDonald, don't want to fade her 3-pointers. Regardless of her recent form, this is an ideal matchup for her to bang some threes. But her points is probably the one I like the most so far. And it's just an over in her points. I think that last game where she was 0 from 8, you can call that a bit of an outlier. This Mercury team not great at defending where she likes to score. So she'll get the minutes, she'll get the opportunities. We just needed to make some buckets. So I might ride with Ari McDonald. Now looking at the Phoenix Mercury to see what we like up in here. And the one standing out to me already is DT, Diana Taurasi. And we're looking at the over in her assists, 3.5. So she's gone over this in 5 consecutive games, averaging 4.8. I also love that this is a plus money play, plus 100. And if you did not know, I love plus money plays. And the other thing is that the Spark, they do allow the second most assists in the league. So we almost have the holy trinity here of everything looking green. If we look at head-to-head matchup, she's covered in 3 out of 4. The last time she played them, she finished with 0 assists, though, in 28 minutes, which is wild. We're probably going to find someone else from this Mercury team with 1,000 assists. But the recent form in this is really good. On the season, it's a bit all over the place. So she had gone under this in 11 straight games. And then when Brittany Griner came back, Diana Taurasi has covered this in 5 consecutive games. How crazy is that? One player comes in and it just changes everything. So DT, I might ride with that. It makes a lot of sense. She's not just getting lucky. So DT, you're on my list. I'll most likely bet it, especially if it's still plus money by the time I look at it. Let's see what else is standing out to us if we're looking at that recent form. So we've got the fade on Natasha Cloud on her PRA. Her PRA is at 22.5. She's gone under this in 5 straight games. The problem is the Spark allow a lot of assists and they allow a lot of points. Both of those things Natasha Cloud is capable of doing. And how does Natasha Cloud score her points? Scores out of the pick and roll, gets to the free throw line, gets out in transition, can make the occasional spot-up shot. The problem is the Spark not really good at defending any of those things. Their defense is not great at all. So if Natasha Cloud wants to score, she probably will. So I'm not keen on betting on any unders for her. Even the under in her assists, check this out. So she's hit under 7.5 assists in 4 out of her last 5 games. She's actually hit under in 63% of her games this season. And in head-to-head matchup, she's hit under in 3 out of 4. The last time she versus Spark, she had 12 assists. So DT, she had no assists in that game. And I did say someone probably racked up the assists. We found our girl. Natasha Cloud had 12 assists in that game. So you know the Spark give up a lot. So I ain't going to bet no unders on this one. But another one that stands out, which could be a good one, is Brittany Griner. Over 18.5 points. Now, I have been a victim of betting her over before. It was against the Lynx. She only scored 10. I'm a fool, I know. But she has covered this in 4 out of her last 5. Averaging 21.2 points per game. This season, she's only played 6 games. And the only 2 games where she's gone under were the 2 games against the Minnesota Lynx, up against this Spark team, which I don't think have too many people big enough. They got that big, how do I say this, that big Chinese woman. She might be able to slow it down a little bit, but I doubt it. So Brittany Griner scores a lot of her points in the post. And in the post, I think she gets to dominate in this one. So the free throw line, a little bit as a pick and roll, but for the most part, she scores in the post. She's been pretty good, 4 out of 6 so far this season. She is back at home. The hit rate doesn't change too much because she hasn't played too many games, but 3 out of 4 games at home. She's been strong. It really comes down to the Spark not being good defensively and Brittany Griner being an absolute beast. So I don't mind that. Looking at her rebounds real quick, see how she can dominate. Spark, pretty good rebounding team, actually. So I don't want to bet any overs there. But the over in Brittany Griner's points was at 18.5 at minus 140. It's moved up to 19. So I have to do some line shopping there. But I also think it correlates well with Diana Taurasi because we saw it in DT's numbers. Her assist numbers have gone up since Brittany Griner's come back. We'd like Brittany Griner to score. We could see some correlation for some parlays here, boys and girls. So Brittany Griner, congratulations, my friend. You've made it to the list. I'm just checking to see if there's anything else that stands out here. You could fade Rebecca Allen if you want to because the hit rate isn't bad on that. But I don't want to take any unders for these Mercury players in this matchup. I don't want to take no unders because I think this is going to be a lot of everything. There'll be a lot of things happening. So we've got DT's assists. Points and rebounds actually aren't too bad either. I'm going to have a quick look at her PRA real quick. Head-to-head, she's smoked them, but a lot of that was scoring. 3 straight games against the Spark. DT's gone over her points line of 15.5. Only 4 of her last 10, though, and 7 out of 16 games. So a bit inconsistent with that. So if I wanted to get risky, we could have put something together right now, but I don't necessarily want to get risky, if you know what I'm saying, because I am a risky individual, and if I get risky too often, then shit, my bankroll disappears. But at least you know what I'm liking. I've got a nice list of leans. I'm just going to go through and review them without the pressure of the camera on to make sure I didn't fuck something up or read something wrong, but I'll be checking that out for sure. And then I'll put it in the pinned comment. You'll see what I'm riding with, or for those of you who have signed up to Winnable, you'll get access to all of my picks anyway. But the key thing I really want you guys to do is just check out the strategy. The strategy is very easy. I run the same thing over and over again. The way I explain the video kind of goes over the strategy anyway, but at least if you download that PDF, you get to see the strategy and you can apply it at your own pace. So check that out. It's in the video description below. If you haven't already, like, comment, sub to the channel because your boy is getting busy. Let me know what you think. Tell me what you're riding. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.